Elon Musk has been very transparent. He is so focused on volume over margin growth.
50% of the population, consumers, can only afford a $400 payment, car payment. So affordability is critical.
As part of Yahoo Finance's week-long special, EVs, the road ahead, we're taking a look at the biggest challenges in place for the EV transition. Yahoo Finance's Pras Subramanian, of course, is here with the details. So, Pras, what are some of those challenges?
All that and more. So let's get to it.
To shift gears to Tesla, which I will say, so we're basically unchanged on the session, which is sort of amazing. This has been alongside the market's comeback here, now pretty much rallying on the session. But Tesla did announce further reducing some of its prices for their Model 3, their Model Y. And again, this has been the ongoing story all year long, because you have the camp of people that are saying, what does this mean for margins? But Elon Musk has been very transparent. He is so focused on volume over margin growth this year, Alex. So, I mean, interesting figures. We're seeing it more affordable for the consumer. We're definitely winners in that aspect, but not necessarily seen as a winning sign for Tesla, perhaps signaling that they have some demand issues. They have to keep lowering their prices.
I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but demand issue? Let me tell you something. Bring it in. To say Tesla has a demand issue would infer that electric vehicles are not the future in automobile transit. I mean, for sakes, they are the best at producing battery electric vehicles. The absolute best in the world. Demand issue? Those two thoughts don't even sync up for me. Tesla does not have a demand issue. Does anyone remember what the prices looked like before the pandemic? Well, let's take it to the Director of Research for Autonomous Technologies and Robots over at ARK Invest. Sam, could you enlighten us on what has occurred? Price cuts do not suggest that Tesla has a problem. Year to date, Tesla has cut the prices of the long-range Model Y by $17,500, or 26.5%. Oh no, the margins! Leading some investors to fret about underlying demand and margins. A survey of recent history, however, suggests that prices are settling back to pre-COVID levels now that the supply chain bottlenecks are diminishing. Question: what do you think will happen when the total addressable market increases due to the prices falling? You guessed it. The demand will rise. What happens if the demand exceeds Tesla's production ability? Oh, you guessed it, the prices will rise. It is a delicate type wire balancing act that Tesla has to maintain. One, to keep the wait times in check, and two, to deliver every vehicle they produce in a timely manner. Well, I think those are the same thing, but you get my point. Manufacturing complex items such as automobiles is a Herculean task. You can only go as fast as your most unlucky part. Anything can throw a monkey wrench in your manufacturing process, slowing your production down to a snail's pace. Just ask Rivian, Ford, or pick your automotive manufacturer that are struggling to meet their production goals for the year. Let's table this. I have a feeling we're going to be coming back to Sam here shortly.
It's hard to say with a company like Tesla. This has largely been a part of the plan, it seems like, since the inception and Elon Musk's involvement. This idea of start with the expensive car, make a slightly less expensive car, to make a more affordable car, to make a very affordable car. It seems like they're truly trying to implement that. But I also saw another explanation that I think provides an interesting thought, and also maybe deserves some merit, which is, are they attempting to sort of apply this sort of razor and blade type of a process, where the car itself isn't necessarily the bread and butter, but it's the updates to the software, the full service driving, potentially the battery and its applications elsewhere. This idea that the Tesla car gets you in the door, but you're monetized after. Very similar to sort of how the iPhone seems to work now. Yeah, the iPhone's still making a ton of money for Apple, but they're increasingly reliant on you accessing that app store and the services after the fact.
Ding, 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 ding! Tell him what he's won, Johnny! Your mother. Right. If you buy a Tesla, you can consider that a gateway drug to the Tesla ecosystem. Advanced autopilot safety features to include full self-driving. Everybody seems to be trying to rebrand this into full service driving, I don't understand that, but full self-driving. Oh, you need someplace to charge your electric vehicle? Even though Tesla isn't making tons of money on their charging network, you'd have to be blind not to see their future potential revenues coming from their supercharging network. Oh, would you like the convenience of charging in your garage? Damn Skippy, we can help you with that as well. Need some energy generation on the roof? Would you like some power walls to store that energy so that you can use it later? We provide all of that.
No kidding, and they definitely get me in that sense. But this does come after they did release their third quarter deliveries coming in around 435,000. That was disappointing. Consensus had called for around 455,000. But we talked about this earlier this week. We're saying almost like a non-selling event feels like good news given some of the historical volatility we've seen after their delivery figures. Also, we did get reports today the SEC is suing Musk in federal court in San Francisco, claiming he failed to appear to provide testimony last month when he was subpoenaed back in May. That is an ongoing saga, and that has so much more to do with his purchase of Twitter. I don't even really necessarily want to get into it. But what I did find when I was looking at all things SEC versus Elon Musk is he did recently respond to the social media user who shared a graphic that was comparing EV sales for the first half of this year. And he said, basically was responding to if he should be at the head of Tesla, saying, some say I should question if I should even run Tesla. My response is simply, which CEO on that list would you prefer? Responding with this graphic that showcased their leading sales performance in the first 6 months of this year. Mind you, they've outsold its 19 closest competitors, including Ford, Rivian, Volkswagen, and BMW. They did achieve an impressive 325,000 vehicle sales, which the second best just to Tesla was GM with around 35,000 electric vehicles sold, which just paints a picture of their dominance. I mean, 325,000 vehicles versus GM around 35,000. Incomparable. And I think that is why we're still, I mean, not necessarily that's why, but just speaks to Tesla's dominance in this market. So often I feel like the bears start to echo when we start to see things pull back in Tesla, but this stock is still up 110% this year, and it's up, I mean, a decent amount, 4% this week, Alex, which is amazing considering some of the weakness and mass selling we've seen in GM and Ford. Obviously, they have somewhat of their own issues going on right now, but Tesla is appearing to emerge as the winner of these UAW strikes.
There is no better CEO than that guy right back there.
When it comes to these lawsuits and things, to me, this is equivalent to like the gossip tabloids that you see when you're checking out at a store. Like to me, that's like what it is in the financial markets. When it matters, the market will let us know because there'll be price movement. When it comes to Elon Musk and other leaders of these companies, many of those other leaders in the companies are not household names. So the fact that everyone knows who Elon Musk is goes to show some of the successes that he's had, and some of that comes with failures as well, and downsides and positives, pros and cons.
Bingo bango, folks.
Yeah, we're looking at EV price drops there, but you're talking about 8%, at least in market share. There's a really wide range when you're looking at how things are state by state. California, where I am, is near 25% for new cars, and yet you've got many other states that are lagging. Is it about price? Is it about infrastructure? What's holding some of these drivers back?
Yeah, I think that's a lot of different factors. As you mentioned, I think it's price, it's infrastructure. I think that whole range anxiety is really infrastructure anxiety. So I think that's part of it. I think the state incentives is another one. Education about the incentives. I think that's another factor that's really trying to like promote EVs and really get consumers more aware about EVs. I think that's a difference in some of the states where we're seeing more adoption as well.
Let's be clear, not all EVs are created equally. Rivians, Mach-E's, and obviously Teslas are the most notable, identifiable electric vehicles that you would see on the road. So the more of those things you see will naturally create a level of curiosity. Wait a minute, I'm seeing these things everywhere. Can they possibly be that good? Within the next 5 years, every consumer will be faced with the question, is this my last internal combustion engine? Will I buy a hybrid? Or will I go fully electric? Can I go fully electric? But first things first, they have to be more affordable.
Specifically on price, what do you think is the sweet spot for drivers that would convince them to switch over? The argument from the White House has been, look, we've had these incentives for the IRA, $7,500 for new EVs. The market is likely to follow. It hasn't been quite as even. Is it about a price point that's in the 30,000 range? Is it 40,000? What are you finding?
Yeah, I think it's definitely that. We actually did a report last week, and it showed that 50% of the population consumers can only afford a $400 payment, car payment. So affordability is critical, and I think we have the Inflation Reduction incentives, which I think are really good, but there's only less than a dozen that are eligible. So I think as we start to see more affordable vehicles under that 40,000 price point, and then also more that are eligible for that EV credit's going to be important. The IRA is point of sale starting January. So I think that's also going to help because consumers are going to see that taken off at the point of purchase versus tax returns. So I think that's going to be another thing that we should watch to see how that helps with adoption going into the new year.
$400 car payment? What year is this? 2016? Now, the interest rate environment caused by the macroeconomic pressures has changed things dramatically. Importantly, Tesla has offset the drastic 57% jump in auto loan interest rates since 2019, underscoring its commitment to the affordability necessary to accelerate the transition to sustainable energy. Now, there is no high-quality Tesla that is going to be in that $400 a month car payment yet. Battery electric vehicles are going to become cheaper and cheaper in accordance to Wright's law. Tesla's move could be a leading indicator of a broader decline in auto prices, spelling more trouble for parts of the industry facing strikes and higher wages. According to Wright's law, for every cumulative doubling of units produced, costs will fall by a constant percentage. Electric vehicle prices should continue to decline in tandem with battery and other input costs. Battery electric vehicles are a fairly new concept being produced at such a scale. The more vehicles Tesla produces, the more they will find ways to cut costs and pass those cost savings on to consumers. If the goal was to make as much money as you possibly can, you would consider the margins to be sky high. They would have 30-35% margins and the prices would still be astronomical. But that's not Tesla's goal.
Well, the move to electric vehicles proving itself to be a winding road. As part of Yahoo Finance's week-long special, EVs, the road ahead, we're taking a look at the biggest challenges in place for the EV transition. Yahoo Finance's Pras Subramanian, of course, is here with the details. So, Pras, what are some of those challenges?
Yeah, as this kind of transformation takes place, we're watching these things over the next week. I feel like there's three things that we should watch out for: labor, demand, but then also the cost of materials. So these are the three factors that I sort of am watching and come into play. So we'll start with labor here. This is obviously front and center right now with the UAW strike happening right now. It sort of comes at the worst time for the big three as they're ramping up investment to build out their EV facilities, but spending billions here, also losing hundreds of millions here because of the strike. And conversely, for the union, making EVs requires fewer jobs in general. It's simpler to make, there are fewer moving parts, fewer cast parts to use. So the unions are sort of concerned here about that, which leads to more rancor and maybe calls for job security.
Labor. Wright's law. For every cumulative doubling, the cost to produce these vehicles will go down. This is not the same as an internal combustion engine. Legacy Auto has been producing internal combustion engines for over a century, but that does not help them when it comes to producing a battery electric vehicle. Many people don't get that, and this UAW strike is only slowing their ability to produce battery electric vehicles in the volumes necessary for them to cut costs. They've painted themselves into a corner, and they're gonna have to step on that wet paint if they want to survive.
Secondly, demand. The demand picture, EVs sold last quarter around 9%, 8% of all light vehicles sold in the U.S., steadily creeping up, but still sort of tailing off in some regions. A big part of it is cost. KBB finds EVs cost on average $18,000 more dollars than gas-powered cars. That's sort of a big deal. It's a huge premium hitting demand. And conversely, this is why the EV tax credit is so important here, right? So, problems like infrastructure and demand anxiety don't help with demand either.
Demand. I think we forget that Tesla will be making almost 2 million vehicles in 2023. That's just 2 million vehicles. And then when you add up all the other auto manufacturers' battery electric vehicles that are obviously inferior and cost more, many people recognize they simply can't afford to transition at this stage of the game. Macroeconomic environment is crucial, but there are still those that can. As a matter of fact, Tesla's demand exceeds their production capabilities, whereas other manufacturers of battery electric vehicles are realizing that it costs way too much to produce these things, and we're not producing them in a quality that really excites the consumer. Demand is not an issue for companies like Rivian and Tesla, but if you're making inferior battery electric vehicles and you're not proficient at making them well, yeah, you're going to experience significant amounts of pain before you start to see those gains.
Finally, cost of materials. Despite fewer labor inputs, EVs cost more to make. That's just a reality. Legacy automakers spending billions of dollars to sort of make these factories to get these cars online. But once you're online, they have to pay for materials like lithium, cobalt, nickel, all in large quantities. When it kind of pair it all together, supply costs, things like that, these costs for these cars, EVs, are kind of rocketing higher and leaving automakers with a conundrum here. Either you eat the cost and hurt margins, or pass the costs on and hit sales. So these kind of things we're watching here as the EV transformation hits this big green tidal wave, as some are calling it.
Costs rising for battery materials. This may be true, but innovation is what will stymie these costs. So many battery chemistries that you could possibly use to offset these costs, improve battery functionality. But the only way to get there is to produce as many as you possibly can. You can't expect Wright's Law to take effect prior to the cumulative doubling of production. At Tesla scale, the cost of materials becomes insignificant because they're efficient at using every scrap of material that they have, repurposing leftovers to function elsewhere, reducing overhead and waste. But you can only achieve that level of proficiency by doing it over and over and over again. Tesla is in a class of their own. In conclusion, Tesla's price cutting continues to be a headwind for many analysts, but I'm here to tell you that's part of the plan. We've just gotten back to pre-pandemic levels. You remember when all of the supply chain was gripped in the vice of a pandemic? Tesla has single-handedly changed the trajectory of the automobile industry with battery electric vehicles. There are around 100 million new cars sold annually around the world, and EV sales make up around 10-12% of that. The thing is, battery electric vehicle sales have been doubling in size in the recent years. Some would say it is growing in accordance with how many battery electric vehicles are being produced around the world. Imagine that. That's all I have for you today. Be easy. Peace.